I've lived in this valley for nearly 20 years. Actually excavating a site in this part of the world is something I never expected to do. And what we're trying to understand is when the first traces of humans coming into this landscape actually were. We're on the island. This is always dry. If you look where the longer grass is, that would have been where it was wet. So the people were here on this dry island, coming into an area. We don't know exactly what we're going to find. Very surprisingly, we started to find flint artifacts. And these were sharp artifacts, meaning they've never been moved. It was really exciting for us. I think the reason that people are here, around about 8,000, possibly as recently as about 5,000 years ago, is that these are good places for fishing and waterfowling. The excavations here are one part of a bigger set of objectives in the Portalis project to look at the environment and the landscapes of the earliest inhabitants of West Wales. Here in this valley, for the period we're talking about, the Neolithic and the Mesolithic, we haven't had much of that time period of archaeology before. If people were having fires on the top of these mounds, what we're going to see are periodic episodes of burning and charcoal that get into the pollen record.
The site actually is very ephemeral. We've got very small scatters of flint material. We had a really exciting find from this trench, Trench 10. One of our volunteers was cleaning back in this trench. They found this piece, which is a microlith, and this is Mesolithic. This is a diagnostically Mesolithic piece. Some of the diagnostic tools that we find in the Mesolithic are microliths, tiny, tiny little projectile points that are often associated with hunting. They're flint pieces that you can insert into harpoons. Trench 4 produced some flint flakes, and so did Trench 1. But Trench 1 also produced a polished stone axe. Polished stone axes are always associated with early Neolithic activity. So what we're looking at here is probably an event which incorporated a group of people who were using both those material objects. So both microliths and polished stone axes. What we know from the material is that there was prehistoric activity here, probably looking at about 10,000 years ago, roughly. It's piecing together the puzzles around the excavation. It is a very small assemblage. It's just over 50 pieces of flint work, but it's an assemblage. It's people were there.
Be dyn ni'n neud yma yw ERT, sef Electroresistivity Topography. A basically be dyn ni'n neud yw rhedeg ceryn trydanol trwy'r daear a dyfnder o tua 5 metr. Ac mae hynny'n gallu dangos I ni wedyn ni y wahanol gwrthedd trwy gydol y pridd, ac trwy hynna allwn ni gweld be di'r wahanol fath o pridd o dan ni. So dyna beth dyn ni'n disgwyl I weld, ac ni wedi gwneud ychydig o ground truthing, ychydig o fel coring o'r pridd I weld, os mae hynny'n edrych yn fwy tebygol. Rydyn ni'n weld wahanol mawn fan hyn na beth dyn ni'n weld yn y caedra fyna, ond mae'n dechrau adeiladu llun o beth oedd y til yn edrych fel.
We drove down from London and had a look at the artefact. As we know nothing about it, when someone says flints or arrowheads to us, we don't really know what to picture. So we approach it from an outside eye and try and learn about archaeology and how that can link to dance.
It looks like people may have been coming here for a number of years, across this period when the people were changing from hunter-gatherers to the very first farmers, which is an interesting time period.
We're very visual people, so seeing it and walking with Martin in it kind of guiding us in ways that we wouldn't necessarily go. Is it a lot different digging on the marsh versus other surrounding land here?
The stone tools we got are probably the remains of arrowheads, perhaps, and other tools maybe for processing animals. So I think what they were doing here was probably hunting, fishing, wildfowling. This is a great place to live. There's so many resources in a wetland environment.
Being on the spot of where it happened is really changing our approach to it, and having all those surroundings sensation, like the noise of the nature, the smell, the wind, and then how the floor is and the sensation of it on our feet and body.
We actually go on our own path to figure out the experiences they've gone through and see how that affects us as dancers.
The project that I'm involved in is developing a pilgrimage route which is between Wexford in Southeast Ireland and St David's, which is in Pembrokeshire in Wales. And at the core of it is this 150-kilometre pilgrimage route connected by the sea journey from Rosslare to Fishguard. We're doing different types of terrain and different types of walking, but it's all this lovely connection from one to the next. So welcome pilgrims, welcome everybody to this beautiful monument which marks the start of our Avon River pilgrimage. We start with a talisman, and here we have a number of, these are white quartz, and I'd like you to just choose one. When you do a pilgrimage, it's a contemplative walk. Are you ready?
Yes.
Fabulous. Let's go. It's heading this direction to Aberaeron. Okay, there we go. The pilgrimage route between Wexford and Pembrokeshire is not just one way. It's definitely from Ireland to Wales and Wales to Ireland. It's using story, and the stories particularly around two particular Celtic, 5th century Celtic saints, St Aidan and St David. Walking the land, that's always where I find myself most at home spiritually. I think it's really interesting following a river, because a river starts off tiny and it ends up, you know, gushing into the Cardigan Bay. So sort of very symbolic, you know, yeah, to pilgrimage. It's 26 miles from source to sea, so we're just still a few miles outside of Aberaeron. Sort of, I think it would be a good place to stop and just have a little contemplation. I got a little quote by a chap called John Muir. When you tug at a single thing in nature, you find it is attached to the rest of the world. And, head off that way and then go down to the bridge. That's it, after you. So, happy pilgrims, we made it. Yay! A great walk down anyway, and so here we are, and there's been the Aeron River has now come into the harbour here. That is Cardigan Bay. Further is the Irish Sea, and then there's Ireland. As this journey draws to an end, we give thanks for the gifts it brought and how they became inlaid within, where neither tide nor time can touch them. 1, 2, 3.
I'm the Living Seas Manager for the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales, and I'm based at the Cardigan Bay Marine Wildlife Centre in Newquay. And a lot of that involves doing research on the marine mammals, what we call the Cardigan Bay Big Three, which is the bottlenose dolphins, harbour porpoises and Atlantic grey seals. Dolphins up ahead! So when we encounter bottlenose dolphins, there's various bits of information that we're trying to gather, and I'm trying to capture the dolphin dorsal fin. We are also trying to capture various acoustic information.
And my research focuses on the acoustic behaviour of the dolphins here. We use an underwater microphone to record the dolphins. What I'm most interested in are bottlenose dolphin signature whistles. And signature whistles are a bit like humans have names. It's a unique whistle to an individual that they use to broadcast their identity. Yep, whistles and echolocation. And another type of very important vocalization for their biology is echolocation. And so that's a form of biological sonar that the dolphins use to hunt and find and track their prey. There's been a few buzzes. They're foraging. Of course, we have a lot of wider concerns about climate change, potential impacts of vessel traffic on the dolphin populations here.
These populations of animals, you know, they're here. We're very lucky that they're here, but it doesn't always mean that they are going to be here. There's a lot of pressures on the marine environment now. We're lucky enough to be able to come into the marine environment. We're able to explore it, but we also need to respect it. The pressures on the wildlife are increasing. When I first came here, what we used to see is big groups of animals all coming together, quite often foraging, rather than more social behaviour. It's sad to see that they're having to spend so much time foraging. You get that feeling that they're not so relaxed. It's not really our world. Humans don't belong in the marine environment. We want to find out as much as we can about the environment here, the animals that call it home, so that we can help to protect them for the future.